Hi, I'm Ryan from Kamloops, British Columbia, and this is Ryan from Kamloops.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ryan from Kamloops. Now, you might be saying, hang on, that's not Ryan. And you would be right. No, I am Chris from Kamloops, and I'm in Montreal, and I am guest hosting this week's episode. Now, obviously, I am not in Kamloops, and I have no idea what's going on there. Except for what I see on this show every week, and of course what my mom tells me on the phone. But in any event, here we are. You get me this week while Ryan recovers from his presumably very painful and debilitating but hopefully restorative back surgery. Later we'll check in with Ryan himself to see how he's doing. Hopefully he's well on his way on the road to recovery. But for now, let's get to our top story of the week. At the core of today's top story is friendship. This week, Ryan asked me to talk about our YouTube channel, Hiwi. About 2 years ago, give or take, Ryan reached out to me. He texted me and he said, "Hey buddy, how you doing?" And I responded, "Yeah, I'm okay, how you doing?" And then he was like, "You remember how we used to make movies all the time?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You want to do that again?" And I was like, "Okay." At least that's what we tell people. It's the short version of the story. But in all honesty, I wasn't in a good place when Ryan reached out to me. I'm sure many of you can relate. It's easy to get to a point where you can't see which way to go and you don't know what to do with your life, and sometimes you feel like you can't bother your spouse or your partner or your family with the same old stuff that you just can't seem to get a handle on. I was fortunate enough to have a really good friend with enough courage to be vulnerable. He put himself out there just like he's done with this show. He's taking a risk, and I think it's really brave. We hadn't spoken in like almost 20 years, but reconnecting was way easier than it should have been. We fell right back into it, but that's because Ryan is good at being present. That's like one thing I really admire about him. You know he's listening and you know he cares. And I can see it in how he talks about Kamloops and how passionately he believes in the positivity he talks about on this show with you every week. And speaking of being positive, I'm positive that this is the moment that he wrecked his back. Let's have a look.
And action. Action.
That was a scene from a film called Blockbuster that we made about 20 years ago when Ryan and I were roommates. Let's have another look at that.
Action.
Oof. I remember laying on the ground as he jumped over me again and again while I was filming. I was asking him, like, "Are you sure you're okay?" And he kept going. He was a trooper, and if it wasn't the first take, it was the fifth or the sixth that did it for sure. Yeah. Ryan and I have a long history of making silly / stupid, dumb movies when we were younger. We'd come up with the idea on the spot and then film it. We'd basically start with a vague idea of what we wanted to make, like a genre, let's say. Then we'd make it up as we went. It really wasn't about the finished video. It was about hanging out and having a good time with your friends. And, what's better than that? I wish I could say that we are more organized now. And honestly, objectively, we are. But by the end of season 1 of Hiwi, we were coming up with the ideas on Monday, then filming on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Then I'd edit Thursday to Friday, and we'd release on a Friday. But, it worked. And now we've started working on our next season. We just have to wait for Ryan to heal a little bit more. So it's giving us plenty of time to make sure we have a bunch of ideas in the can. In addition to that, We have some big plans for the future that we're looking forward to sharing with you soon. So if you're looking for ways to get involved with what we're doing, or you just want to be informed about what we're up to, make sure you subscribe to our Hiwi channel on YouTube. And now, let's check in with Ryan to see how he's doing. Ryan?
Thanks, Chris. I am recovering. I'm back up on my feet. I'm outside again with my trusty cane. It's good to be outside, out of my bed. I'll be back next week with episode 16. Until then, let's send it over to the House of Misfit. Jess is going to tell you all about what's going on in Kamloops this week. Thanks again to Chris for hosting this week. See everybody next week.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. It's Jess from House of Misfit, back to tell you about gigs in town this week. I got quite a few things for you. Tuesday, May 13th, Random Killing with Motherfuckers and Caustic will be at the Bridgeview Theater, 7 p.m., $20 at the door. Derev with Augur and Gregorius are bringing some metal to the Blue Grotto. That's at 7 p.m., $15 at the door, and that one is a 19-plus show. Then Thursday, May 15th, the Freudian Slips are hosting their Dungeons and Dragons improv at the FE Arts Collective. Doors are at 7. Tickets are $24 on Eventbrite. Friday, May 16th, this one I am super excited about. Blood Rhine with locals Voltage and Violets are playing the Cami Inn. Doors are at 8. Tickets are $20 at the door. If hardcore's not your thing, you can go to the Triple Decker Comedy Tour with Himansu Patel, James Cummings, and Dave Luca at the FE Arts Collective. Doors are at 8. Tickets are $23 on Eventbrite. Last but not least, Saturday, May 17th, we have Danny Bell with Volunteers and Jared Jackal at the FE Arts Collective. Doors are at 7. It is $20 on Eventbrite, or pay what you can at the door, and it is an all-ages show. Last but not least, another all-ages show at the Bridgeview Theater, Poor Sport with Idiofame and Folded Hand, if you want to introduce your young ones to some punk rock. Tickets are $24 on Eventbrite, and doors are at 7. If I forgot anything, please let us know in the comments. I probably have missed some things. And don't forget to follow your favorite venues, promoters, and bands so you don't miss out on what's coming into town. That's all I got for now. Back to you, Chris.
Well, I am glad you are feeling a little bit better, buddy. You make this hosting thing look really easy, and I have to say that it's not. This isn't my first take. I hope you're back next week. And I'm sure everyone will join me in saying that we love you and we are sending you positive vibes, and we hope to see you on your feet real soon. Now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, this week's Top 5. This week, I decided to do the top 5 things I miss most about Kamloops. And some of you might miss these things too, because I'm opening up a big old bag of nostalgia on this one. And some of these things are things you can't even do if you live in Kamloops. So, without further ado, number 5, floating down the river with some friends. Back in the day, Ryan and I and a bunch of our friends would tie up a bunch of dinghies and we would float down the river from Dallas to Pioneer Park. And it was just great. Those were the days. Number 4, mascots. Like Buttercup and Cactus Coyote, but particularly Cammy the Fish. I miss that guy. Here's a fun fact. When I was in high school, I used to dress up as Cactus, and I would do city events. And the climate in Kamloops is especially hostile and unforgiving to anyone who decides to put on 20 pounds of fun fur. So I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't that many mascots around anymore. Yeah. Number 3. The Kamloops water slides. Now you might be saying, fake Ryan. Why aren't the water slides number 1? Well, I will tell you, it's because of the huge gaps that were in the slide that would rip the skin off of your heels and your shoulders when you were arching your back for maximum speed. You know, like when you were trying to catch air on the tumbleweed, but ultimately it would just, so painful. But still a really good day. Love those water slides, but that's why they're number 3. Number 2. The Kamloops sign, up on Mount Paul. I mean, really, what more can you say than who doesn't like living somewhere where you never can forget where you are? You just have to look up, and there you are, in Kamloops. Yeah, that was cool. And number one is my mom. I miss you, Mom. And if you miss my mom, you can check her out on YouTube, on her YouTube channel, Stampin' with Diane, where she'll show you tons of cool techniques to do with stamps and paper and all sorts of things. Check it out. Well, that is the end of this week's show. I had a great time, and thank you, Ryan, for trusting me with your show, and thank you for tuning in. And remember, look for the positivity in your life. Knowledge is power, and kids are the future. Bye, everyone.